Hello?
Hey,
Hey,
sorry about that.
you're
I
fine.
was very short. All right. So you had basically two main complaints. So it says earlier this year on July 5th, same manager, which that is Bobby, threatened to falsify the same document with the same information or ignore the hazard and continue operating equipment that did not function properly.
Mm-hmm.
So the speaking to Scott, speaking to Sid, speaking to Fred, they were kind of involved.
Mm-hmm.
They contend, outside of this investigation, they contend when you are on the yard, you are good because you're not really interacting so much with other people. So they said outside of that is attendance or some kind of issue with you. That's what they contend. So for the two issues that you brought up, it says, that he threatened to falsify documents. But I asked for Scott, to go back to verify that maintenance, who that's considered our experts, say that the truck was working fine on July 5th. The issue that the truck was brought back to the yard for, and they contend
Mm-hmm.
that maintenance reviewed as well as the maintenance manager verified that the truck was safe to operate. So you refusing was an issue.
Well, if they feel that truck was safe to operate, then they're not qualified.
Mm-hmm. And so then the next thing, the 822, let me go back on 822.
Oh, and real quick before we move on to the next one,
Sure.
so that date they were talking about where Bobby kept insisting that the managers had looked at it.
Yeah, the maintenance.
So nobody
Yeah.
had looked at it since we had gotten back to the shop. Like that truck never pulled into the safety lane bay. Nobody ever walked out to look at it, other than Fred and Bobby walked out there, but they didn't walk out there to look at it. So at that time, nobody had even bothered to look at what I was talking about.
Yeah, so they contended that the truck was safe. I mean, there's nothing else that we have to go on besides you saying it wasn't safe, them saying yes it's safe, maintenance saying we said the truck is safe.
I mean, I've got pictures of where the container body was coming off, was separating from the frame. Because that's what was making the rear end sag, or was one of the other things that was adding to the sag on the rear end of the truck.
So then they say that, but again, they contend, and Scott is adamant, you did not want to, they gave you the option to continue whatever, you didn't want to. So basically that's why you were given the option of, you can do this.
Well, so me and Scott had already agreed on me working the yard before any of this even took place.
Yeah, you were helping.
Right. Yeah, I was doing routes because we were short staffed.
Yep. And so the other incident, even on the recording, you said, basically you're gone because you've already worked your 12 hours. And Scott, and I say Scott was kind of my main point of contact, even though I spoke with Fred and said Scott was my main point of contact for this investigation because Bobby is gone. And he wouldn't have been my main point of contact anyway. Because
Bobby's gone. Wow. Bobby doesn't work there anymore?
No, he doesn't work there anymore.
Wow, awesome.
And so he, so they say that, even on the audio, you're saying, I'm not going back because you've worked your 12 hours. And so Scott said that's kind of part of the problem. You guys could have possibly got more done. There's nothing that states at 12 hours you go home.
Well, so the employment contract that I signed with Fred when I got hired, it said up to 60 hours a week. So from my understanding, that would equate to 12 hours a day.
And he said nothing says that you work 12 hours. So essentially,
well, I'd already brought up the hours being a problem. So the Friday after the 4th of July, that July incident, like I fell asleep on the way home from work driving. From exhaustion, just because they tried to get me to sign the resignation letter and whatnot, and Bobby was putting this quota of can washing on top of me doing routes. So I'd already told him, I think every manager there multiple times that like the hours were getting to be too long, because 12 hours is a normal day. Most days ran over 12 hours. Most days are 13 plus.
Oh, but you said on the last recording that I'm going home. I work my 12 hours.
Right.
I don't work over 12 hours.
Right, because so that was basically that was the point where I had enough of Bobby trying to overwork me.
Mm-hmm.
Because from this, so the whole time he was there, or from the day he came there, it was kind of this this quota thing with the can wash, but of course he wasn't taking into account me getting pulled to go work routes and whatnot, and so whenever I'd go finish a route, whenever I'd get back, I'd still go try to keep up to the quota that he was putting me or holding me to. But yeah, so that was basically after months. I was just telling him what I agreed to. Like that's what I agreed to. I agreed to up to 60 hours a week. With Fred, but of course Fred wasn't there. I don't know where he was when all this happened.
On leave some of the time that these incidents.
Yeah.
But essentially, they said, like the documentation. They said, so I asked also about Bobby. Does Bobby get complaints? And tell me about Bobby's management style. And so what I was told was that, he does get complaints. The complaints weren't that he was necessarily unfair. The complaints were about the way he spoke to employees.
Right.
The way he spoke to employees, and that he was he really didn't bend. He
Right.
really didn't bend. So he was really black and white. No, oh, it's because of this. It didn't matter. So which I can see how that can cause problems for working with humans, because we all have different things. But essentially, they don't want you to return. They don't want you to return. They said that, just some of the things, and not because of this investigation, because essentially Fred said, don't know about this investigation. I just asked a couple of questions. Scott knows that this is an investigation because I had to work with him on it and say, hey, can you listen to this recording with me? What do you get from this recording as it relates to, point one of what I'm investigating and stuff? So they essentially don't want you to return.
All right.
They believe the documentation is fair, should stick, and don't want you to return to GFL.
Can I ask why Bobby's not there anymore? Did
He resigned.
He resigned?
Yeah. He resigned. I want to say about a month ago.
So they would have done the same thing if he hadn't been there. Like,
What do you mean?
Like they would have. Would they have made the same call if he hadn't, if one of them had been, because I thought Fred had quit. I didn't think Fred was working anymore. Which I asked Bobby if I could see the employment contract or go over the employment contract with him, because I know that I agreed to up to 60 hours. And even during when he actually gave me the separation letter notice, he even admitted that he knows that I guess they all know that the hours are getting too long, that we were being overworked. Because I asked him,
overworked is probably your word. Long hours is probably their word. I don't think anybody would argue that the hours I'm trash are long hours, but essentially speaking, they don't want you to return.
I mean, I understand that, but I mean,
you said would they have done the same thing if Bobby wasn't there? That would be tough to determine.
Well, so I get the feeling that it feels like to me that Bobby got irritated with me addressing the truck issues. So me being on the back, it's really the truck driver's responsibility. They're supposed to be keeping a log of anything that breaks on the trucks.
Sure, with a VCR.
Right. But the problem is that if they do that, they know they're going to get set back in the day because it's going to take time to fix the truck, and then which in turn in their head makes their day longer. So they tend to neglect to write these things down, which most of the things are more affecting the guy on the back, me, in what I'm doing. So it felt like, which I mean, I was pretty sure that the audio from the 5th was I mean, showed it pretty clearly of him just, him basically, he said, I tried it on Friday, which I'm not trying to do anything when I'm addressing, issues with the trucks. Which a lot of things, most things I don't, like, I'm not nitpicking. It's very, to me, they're major issues that I'm addressing. It's not like, if, there's a little bit of plume out of the exhaust, I'm crying and want, hey, you gotta fix this, It's things like a diving board as far as a step that I'm standing on and the container body coming off the frame, those are, to me, are serious issues that need to be addressed. But yeah, I was pretty sure that it was clear that he basically gotten, he had enough of me, cause he considered it, I guess, wasting time, addressing these, issues with trucks. But cause that's what it feels like to me is that it basically, because I was, trying to, that's what I was told I was supposed to do is anytime I saw a issue with a truck to report it.
Absolutely.
But in spite of that, it seems like, I mean, because the day I got fired for was yet another day where I had to have, because the step was a diving board. It was barely connected to the truck, and all it would have took is one good speed bump or pothole or the driver running up on a curb or something like that for it to break off completely while I'm standing on it, and But just like I said, I think I was working with 2 other people that day, and only I was terminated.
Yeah. Could it have been, which I don't know, could it have been they didn't have the other documentation that you did?
So what do you mean the documentation?
The other documentation that you have in the file. It takes steps in order to be termed. So could it have been that they were not as high up on they didn't have as much discipline in the file as you did?
Well, I'm sure that they might not have, because so Jeremy never says a word about anything. He'll deal with any situation. He likes to work till midnight and whatnot. So when trucks break down, that's just free money to him, whereas I'm the type of guy I'm trying to get the job done and go home. Sure. I have other obligations to take care of.
Sure.
So I'm sure that they don't have as many, which I know Jeremy should have had a bigger file than me from the apps as far as absenteeism and whatnot. But I mean, even still, if I was so-called refusing to work, I don't understand how they wouldn't be considered refusing to work as well. Other than I was the one that because I tried to get the driver to that the day up in particular with this where I had the step changed out. I tried to get the driver to call it in and report it, which he wouldn't do because again he's thinking of the time it's going to set him back. Which route's not getting finished in a day is nothing new. Nobody ever told me that there was a quota of you must finish a route every day. Like, routes don't get completed all the time. So I don't understand why I'm the only one that's being held to that standard, but not everybody else.
I'm just letting you, kind of talk it out. I mean, we've already made a decision though.
All right. Well, I really wanted to go back to work and keep this civil, but I guess I'm gonna have to get other parties involved.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. What a fucking waste of time. Dang. What a waste of time.